Hello and welcome to everyone. My name is Kingsley Jackson and I will be the host for this TLC session, incorporating experiential learning in online courses, presented by Dr. Foster and Dr. Blizard. We are excited that you joined us today to view this presentation. At this time, I'll turn it over to our presenters. Please enjoy.
Thank you, Kingsley. My name is Chris Foster. I'm the course lead of 5103, which is our informal logic class here at Ashford University, and I'm a co-conspirator on this project along with my friend and colleague, Clifford Blizard. You want to introduce yourself?
Sure thing. I'm Dr. Clifford Blizard. I'm the course lead for SCI 207, our dependence upon the environment, also in the Division of General Education here at Ashford University. Take it away, Chris.
Awesome. Well, thanks for coming to our presentation. We have a few things to share and then we want to open it up for questions. But let's start with the background story. Basically, Ashford, as you know, decided a few months ago to start an honors college, which we think is awesome, to allow our exceptional students to excel and something for other students, for all students to aspire to. So I was approached by our dean, Justin Harrison, to develop this course and asked me who I'd like to work with. And I said I could think of no one better than Clifford Blizard, who's full of enthusiasm and brilliance and exciting ideas. And that led to a natural idea of making an honors critical thinking course that is multidisciplinary. Because Clifford does environmental science and I do philosophy, why not, right? And so we came up with this idea and we tried to make it as engaging as we could, and we came up with a few ideas we'd like to share today. So this is a course called Thinking Critically About Global Issues. It's an honors course. It's the first class in a sequence of 6 for the full honors curriculum. So one of the things that we decided to do to make this class more engaging in an online environment was to have it be interdisciplinary, as I mentioned. So normally when we teach critical thinking or informal logic, it's done in the abstract. And an unfortunate thing about that is that the focus is sometimes on terminology, right? You want to memorize the names of fallacies and inductive argument forms, et cetera, et cetera. And then certain abstract techniques like truth tables and so forth that students frequently don't see the daily value in. They don't see how it applies. So what if we inverted that and talked directly about how it applies? So instead of just learning names of fallacies, we're actually learning about them in the context of discussing real life issues. And so kind of a reverse engineer the classroom and do it from the ground up. And so have it be interdisciplinary is a way for the material to kind of come alive, for students to engage in it in a more lively manner and for them to learn by doing. So they're actually practicing critical thinking while studying a real topic of real world importance. So they'll choose a topic that's relevant to the environment, that's interesting to them, and then they'll look at the key concepts, and then they'll look at articles that argue on different sides regarding this topic, and then they'll apply their newfound critical thinking skills in analyzing the quality of reasoning in those articles, etc. And I mentioned becoming a mini expert. When I did the modeled examples for the course, I chose the dead zones in the Gulf of Mexico as my topic. And by the time I was done with this course, even though it was only 5 weeks, expert is definitely an exaggeration, but I felt like I knew a thing or two. Like I felt like I had perspective on this topic because the course forced me to analyze the issue in depth and to analyze it on both sides and to look at different types of media and how the different types of media approach it. So by the end, I felt like I had a good oversight of some of the debates surrounding this issue and what its causes are. So that's a fun thing for students to get to a place where they can understand a topic that's real and important. Which brings us to the next idea, which is that we didn't just have, I feel like a typical argumentative essay is going to have them involving scholarly sources, as it should, because scholarly sources are the best types of sources. But since this is a critical thinking class, we did a nice contrast where we actually have them look at lower quality sources, look at op-eds and websites and analyze the reasoning of those. And then when they engage with the scholarly sources, to analyze the reasoning on both sides of the issue and those as well, and then contrast what they found in those types of sources. And here's a question that's asked: is there a difference in the way that this issue is addressed by scholars and how it's presented in the news media? Why might that be? Is there as much scholarly debate about the issue as there is in the news media? And then they can discuss why that might be, what interests, what motives, what are the intended audiences, what fallacies, biases, etc. do they find? And that way they're engaging critical thinking concepts, but again, in real life application by looking at real sources and discussing their motives in an issue that they've already intellectually and maybe even emotionally invested in. So there's a higher level of engagement in this way. Next, one of the more innovative things that we decided to incorporate was experiential learning. We have them by week 4. We let them know in week 1 they're going to be doing this, and then by week 4 they're required to have a nature experience. So the course is about environmental science, and we feel that they can engage the concepts with the full spectrum of their full person, more so by actually spending time in nature. And now this isn't, now not everybody lives in natural areas, but people were innovative, and Clifford will share some specific examples, but people can be innovative. I happen to be presenting this from the great state of Utah, and if you look out my window here, you'll be able to see, I don't know if you can see them, but there's some beautiful mountains in the background that anybody can climb to. But some people live in cities, and they're going to have to find a park or something cool. But this is a way for them to experience the material from not just a purely academic perspective, but from a personal left brain and right brain sort of perspective. Here's a quotation from Jane Goodall. "It is only when we learn to operate from the head and heart in harmony that we can achieve our true human potential." And I've modified, I've bastardized Henry David Thoreau here. I went to the backyard to get the marrow out of life. So some people look at critical thinking and they think of it as, well, it's the opposite of emotion. And they might worry that this kind of experiential learning is going to engage people at emotional level and therefore shut off their critical thinking valve. Well, that's not how I look at it. That's not how I look at critical thinking, and that's not how I look at this essay. This is a type, most of the best learning we do, and the learning that studies have shown, the learning we're most likely to retain is learning that engages our whole being and does not consist in memorizing terms or learning abstract concepts, but learning that's combined with real life, emotional and experiential learning, where we engage with a topic, where we care about a topic. And when we think about Jane Goodall and Henry David Thoreau as examples, by no means limited to them, when you think of some of the greatest scholars of all kinds of disciplines, very much including environmental sciences, they're people who engage that topic with their whole being. Thoreau didn't just read about the woods, he went to the woods. And so people that are going to be studying environmental science, by having a nature experience, are able to reflect on the concepts that they did. For example, in the, well, we'll talk about it in light of the week 4 journal. When they engage with after they have their nature experience, they do a student journal about it that's due in week 4. And they'll talk about what they learned from the experience. They'll also engage some of the academic material that we've studied. So in week 1, they're introduced to the concept of an ecological worldview, where they'll talk about anthropocentric view, in which humans only are the matrix of moral value. And then there's biocentrism, where all life has moral value. There's sentientism, where all sentient beings have moral value. And then there's ecocentrism, where all of the ecology, all aspects of nature have direct intrinsic moral worth. And so when they do their nature experience, they then reflect back on this and they say, well, how do I feel about it now? While I'm in nature, does this give me a different perspective of the central value? And you think about the work of, say, a great ecological philosopher named Aldo Leopold. He was transformed not by his intellectual studying, but by his real life nature experiences. And he became one of the greatest environmental philosophers because of his direct personal experiences in nature and how they altered his perspective about the source of value. So the hope is that they'll really remember this stuff. They'll care about it, they'll enjoy it, they'll see how it applies, and they'll remember it. So 4 advantages of experiential learning, besides the fact of just engagement itself. And maybe they'll even be, number 5, transformed by it. And then finally, week 5 of the course, now that we're in Canvas, we have more potential for video presentations. So we decided to take a risk and innovate and let our students prepare a video. So in week 5, they do a video in which they get to talk about their topic, of course, but they can talk about it from any number of different points of view. They can do it almost like a commercial, or they can do it like a political speech, or a debate presentation, or like they're speaking to the UN, or just as themselves and talk about their own experiences in nature. But they can choose an angle from which to make their video and then present it to the class as a both creative and academic presentation of what they learned about their topic and through studying it in the ways that they did in light of critical thinking and experiential content this semester. And this creates, not only are they engaging with the topic in the ways already mentioned, but it also creates a social dimension. So as if they really cared about the topic, were transformed even, and then they get to share it with others, that's all the more likely that they're going to invest deeply in it, that they're going to remember what they did. And so the social dimension of learning is yet another very important level of experience that hopefully creates an overall experience of the course that is meaningful to them and memorable by them. So that said, I'm going to let Clifford take it away and talk about what we've actually experienced from students taking the course.
Great, thank you, Chris. So I've had the opportunity now, the honor of getting to teach this course twice. The first time it was offered with only 1 student, and the second time we had 3 students in the course. So I'm sharing with you a very small sample size, but the sample is 100% of the possible students to talk about. So this is just a foretaste, I think, of what this course may eventually offer as it continues to ramp up and as numbers of students taking it increase over time. So I'm going to pick up where Chris left off talking about the video. And all 4 students had no difficulty. Well, they all created videos. I wouldn't say they had no difficulty with it. They created basic recordings. Only one of the students chose to do something creative. He did a sort of advertisement format, and it was only 1 minute long. The other videos were a few minutes long. But it was interesting to me that these students didn't necessarily engage right away with doing a video. One remarked that he recorded it once without sound and then had to record it over again. Another one remarked that in attempting to do something creative, this took much longer than I care to admit. And this, I think, speaks to the relative lack of facility on the part of these students with video, which is kind of telling. I think we're now that we're in this realm of online communication, it's really invaluable to have video be a bigger part of courses. I know that I teach SCI 207, and I've been trying to encourage students to post in discussion with video, and not a single student has taken me up on that yet. So there's definitely some reticence there. One student did remark, though, making this video actually gave me some ideas about some things that I would like to add to my final paper. I guess by only typing out ideas that I forgot what it's like to say things aloud. Just simply reading what I prepared and saying it made me think of other ways it could be worded or how I could make a stronger argument. It really did make a big difference. And this speaks, I think, to the way that a video written component assignment can work in synergy, and that both really benefit from this kind of design. Next slide, Chris. So now I'd like to talk about the journal a little bit, and I'm going to start with the week 1, week 2 assignment. The week 1 journal, the students wrote about their environmental worldview, and week 2, they then discussed what they'd written with their classmates. And I think this was really invaluable for them to do that. First of all, for them to take a time and really think about their worldview in an introspective way without really having to share it, and then getting to share it with other students. One student, after sharing, remarked, "I do not believe that all the worldviews will ever agree. It is okay for us to take a stand or choose a position as long as we can speak to it. I just believe that we need to be able to remain open-minded to another person's point of view. Although we may not agree, we can still learn from each other." Wow. How many of you have gone to Facebook and thought, I wish everyone had this outlook in daily interaction, what it would mean? Or another student, "You hit the nail on the head when you mentioned that our focus should not be on discrediting other angles, but looking at the issue on all sides. Once I started thinking about the worldview issues this way, I began to question why we think about arguments in the fashion that I have to immediately discredit or object to the points made on the other side of the argument. So students are learning to be receptive of other points of view by articulating something as personal as their own environmental worldview. I think this was a tremendously helpful lesson. It also provided them with a lens through which to view their particular environmental issue and recognize that they bring to the table a particular perception of feelings about environmental issues that inevitably are going to color and shape their ultimate take on the particular topic. Next. There was a second journal activity. This involved the nature experience. Chris spoke about this. I'm really thrilled to see this a part of the course. This really gets to the heart of experiential learning. And what I thought was really kind of neat is that I was prepared for students to tell me there really isn't any nature where I am, what do I do? In fact, I'd already planned in advance for that. There's a wonderful book by, I forget, actually her name is a pseudonym anyway, but her last name is Tova Bailey, but it's a pseudonym. And she wrote a book, Journal of a Wild Snail Eating. She'd had a horrendous mitochondrial disease that came upon her. She'd been very active before that. And in her, I think, early 30s, late 20s, she was hit with this disease. And effectively, for many, many years, she was incapable, really, of getting out of bed. She literally was in that kind of condition. And someone brought a plant into her room. And on that plant was a snail. And she had that snail put in a little terrarium, and she watched it. She ended up observing things about that snail's behavior that had never been observed before by science. There's new things to be discovered, a new wonder to be found in a plant on a windowsill. And these students found that going into their backyard or a nature area at work or just going on a walk in their neighborhood was enough to fulfill this sense of getting into nature. And I really applaud that. So students shared some things, and I'm going to read you parts of 3 of them. Even though I would have preferred a walk through the rainforest, I felt calm in my little sanctuary. I didn't ruminate over my problems or worry about my assignments. I just enjoyed this experience for what it was. With my busy schedule, sometimes getting a taste of nature, even one as small as this, is significant. And one interesting byproduct of this assignment is that students found they were being forced to carve time out of their busy lives to just be in nature. And they all really appreciated that. This was a gift this class gave them, a half hour or hour of just being, because they had to. And I think that slowing down really reflects our current life, frenzied lifestyle, that this kind of slowing down opportunity is all too rare. I feel this exercise was important, as another student wrote, because nature is everywhere, even in the city. Since it is often covered up by buildings, cars, highways, and an assortment of other things, we neglect our relationship and connections with nature. And this is really exciting to see students realizing nature is where I am. It isn't just in a national park. It's right here and now, and I can connect with it, and that it's important to do so. Next. This is a longer passage, but really quite telling. And I think it shows the relationship between this journaling experience and the rest of the course, and how this integrated so effectively into the fabric of the design of this particular class. This experience taught me that there's more to life than just the world I personally live in. It taught me to appreciate what nature has naturally provided, and that it's important to take care of it and preserve its beauty. This experience is very valuable to education and made what I have been learning in the classroom about global environmental issues come alive. I thought about overpopulation and urbanization when I saw the construction going on right next door. I thought about water pollution when I walked over the bridge to the small fishing pond and water fountain. I thought about the amount of greenhouse gases that were being emitted when I heard the cars whizzing by and the air conditioner cooling the garden house. I think it's probably meant to be omitted on that part of that student. But anyway, so here's this experience in the classroom of learning about all these environmental issues, and now it's brought back home through this walk through the neighborhood. So it's a chance to integrate, to take what's been learned in the class as abstract concepts, and now it's being integrated into the student's own lived experience, which is an incredibly valuable thing to have happening in our classes. And I just don't think it's happening enough. I'd like to see a lot more of these kinds of opportunities. Next. So what is the cumulative impact of these kinds of experiences in the course? And here are some more quotes. I'll let the students speak about this themselves. First is, it is important to have direct experience because you can explain something to someone, but until they have their own experience with it, they will not truly understand. Personal experience makes head knowledge come alive no matter what topic you are discussing. Not just this incident of being alone in nature for 30 minutes, but being in nature in general has really opened up my eyes and mind to the topics of renewable energies, overpopulation, and even polluted waters. I can now say that it is all coming together thanks to the overall experiences. So this course provides a synergy where 1 + 1 + 1 = 4. All these experiences coming together are having a rich impact on students' lives, even within a mere 5-week time period. What a great experience, another student wrote. I can't even begin to tell you how much I've learned about the environment, critical thinking and logic, and most of all, myself. Next. So what have we learned from this course so far, from the design and implementation of this class? I'd like to summarize a few things in terms of application. One is that I think students would benefit from more video assignments and courses here at Ashford. I really would like to see that become more common. Experiential learning creates greater engagement and promotes personal transformation. Self-reflection can foster a deep integration of course material, while self-reflection plus discussion is a really winning formula where students actually have the opportunity to think, ponder something deeply, and then take that and give it out to the world in a forum where everyone respects everyone else and recognizes the value of respecting and listening to other points of view. And finally, that environmental issues, and I admit I went into this experience thinking this, provide an excellent context for applying critical thinking skills in our lives. And with that note, Chris, I'm going to turn it back over to you.
Well, thank you everyone for coming. Thanks, Clifford, and thanks, Kingsley. We've enjoyed sharing with you the course. We're excited about it. We think it's going well, but again, this is just the jumping off point. The topic is creating engaged learning experiences in an online environment. But these are just some examples of things we came up with. There's plenty more where that came from. So the real point of this is to begin a brainstorm. And we'd like all of you that are watching this, whether live or recorded, to think about how you can make your courses more engaged and more engaging. What are some, just brainstorm. I mean, there's at the initial stage, there's no wrong ideas. Just go for it. What are some exciting ideas that you can think of to put in the classroom? And we'd like to thank you for participating with us in this important exercise. Thanks.